All right. Fine. We'll get into it. All right. I know I've been dragging this on. I've been trying to avoid it, but fine. Fine. I'll talk about Michigan State because the last time I talked about Michigan State, I was a little upset. We had just lost to Rutgers. We just got blown out to Rutgers, I should say. And I made the bold declaration that Michigan State does not care about football. Now, I brought stats at that point. You can go back and watch that video. That video is fairly popular. I brought stats to explain my position. And look, it's a new season. You got a clean slate, all right? Here's my question. What does success even look like? Is it 6-6? I hope not. If that's what it looks like to you, you need to find a new fan base. 7-5, bowl game and then some. 8-4, and 9-3 and above. I'm asking because as far as this schedule goes, it's not. A lot of people are saying it's pretty hard. But it's not as brutal as I feel last year's was, where you had that stretch where it was Oregon, Ohio State, Iowa, Michigan, death, pestilence, the other four horsemen of the apocalypse. Like, it was bad. Going into this year, you got 3 games to start at home. All your non-conference games are at home. Western Michigan this Friday, Boston College at home. Chance for redemption after last year's game, which was much closer, and Youngstown State, who's Youngstown State. That should be a pretty easy win if you are even remotely doing things right. Then you go on the road to USC. That's going to be tough. You go on the road to Nebraska. It really depends how Matt Rule has built that team. If Dylan Raiola is clicking on all cylinders, if he's, the guy that he could be, that could be a tough game. UCLA at home. They got Nico Uliabadubadu, or whatever his last name is. Is he amazing? He's good, but not evidently not good enough to stay in Tennessee. Certainly not for the money he was asking for. Kind of a weird team, though, UCLA. They're never really all that good at football. That feels like a game that if you are at least semi-competent, you should be able to win. At Indiana. Okay, Indiana playoff team last year. Indiana very good last year, but they feasted on a pretty weak schedule. Do they kind of fall back to earth? Are they much more comparable to maybe what you could be? You get Michigan at home this year. Again, Michigan, depending on having what their quarterback situation, assuming it's Bryce Underwood by that point, and he's good, that could be tough, but he's still a freshman. I said rookie, I think, but he's still a freshman, still a 19-year-old kid. At Minnesota. Minnesota's not that good. Okay, PJ Fleck, he can be kind of annoying, but the team is not that good. Penn State at home. Assuming they live up to the expectations, Penn State's pretty good. All right? Iowa on the road. You beat them at home last year. Could you beat them on the road? I don't know. It's going to be tougher, obviously. And then Maryland at home. You beat them on the road last year. I'm seeing it really depends on how this team translates. Now, here's the thing. I'm looking at their depth chart right now. Offensively, this team is very different than they were last year. 2 new receivers. You got Kelly Amari, the transfer senior, and you got, or Amari Kelly, I should say, other way around. And then you got Krishan McCray, the redshirt junior transfer as well. That's 2 new wide receivers, at least wide receiver 1, 2, 3. And then further in the depth, you even got Evan Boyd as well, sophomore transfer. You got Rodney Bullard Jr., senior transfer. And then you got a couple of freshmen deep into the depth chart, and Charles Taplin and Braylon Collier. You kept Alante Brown and Nick Marsh. Those are the only 2 receivers that you kept. Okay? As far as I'm concerned, based on the receivers last year, I'm good with that. That's fine with me. Your left tackle room is pretty much what it was last year. But your center and right and beyond, that's all new. You got a new center in Matt Golban. You got a new right guard in Luka Vincic. You got a new right tackle in Connor Moore. And then even further in depth in right guard, you got Caleb Carter, who's another transfer. And then you got a whole new running back room. Elijah Tolliver, the redshirt senior transfer. And then you got a couple of other guys that are back from the team, but didn't see a whole lot of playing time at the running back position. Needless to say, the offense is very different. On the flip side, your defense is pretty much the same. You got a couple of new guys on the defensive line, Grady Kelly and David Santiago, Joshua Eaton in the cornerback room, Najee Burt, Bell Malcolm, also a corner, Anelu Lafele. I really apologize if I'm butchering these names right now. Also on the right defensive edge, Aisa Moa, the W linebacker, West linebacker. I've never seen the. Okay, whatever linebacker. But he's pretty deep in your depth chart. Other than that, it's pretty much returning guys. I mean, names that I remember. You got Darius Snow. You got Van Sumeren, Malik Spencer. You got a lot of guys that are coming back on the defensive side. So if there is a concern going into this year, it is the defense. However, being perfectly honest with you, I'm pretty intrigued by this offense. The complete overhaul of the wide receiver room intrigues me because that wide receiver room last year was not good. Further, the complete overhaul of that offensive line, at least the starters, that's also intriguing to me. It is a lot of changes. And to me, that leaves a lot up to one Aiden Childs, who last year statistically, let me just see if I can pull up his stats. Last year, 2,400 yards, 2,415 to be exact, 59% completion rate, 13 touchdowns, and 11 picks. Now, I do want to say this. A few of those picks, you can just hawk up to, unlucky. I mean, I remember the first throw he made was an interception, and it was like a toe tap interception, a ball that was basically out of bounds that the FAU defender just happened to come up with. So there's probably a few of those that you come back, but you probably say, okay, there's also probably a few of those that should have been interception. Fair. Aiden Childs was a 4-star recruit. He came in with some pedigree. Obviously, Jonathan Smith liked him enough that he brought him with him when he left Oregon State. If Aiden Childs can live up to that expectation, if Aiden Childs can cut those interceptions in half, if he can get himself to 3,000 yards, then yes, you're looking at a season of, 8-9 wins. And look, does that mean we beat Michigan? It could mean that. It could mean we beat Indiana. It could mean we beat Nebraska. It could mean we beat Iowa. I don't know. Success for me, for Michigan State, in no uncertain terms, means you're 8-4. You have to get to 8-4 in my mind. If you get to 7-5 and you win your bowl game, maybe we can have a discussion. We can talk about that. If you can end the season 8-4, where you, at the very least, it'd be even better if you could beat Michigan. Obviously, you beat your rival. Even if you say the season was not an amazing success, you're into a bowl game and then some. If you could potentially even end 9-4, you build off of what you did, and your offense is fun. I mean, for goodness sake, you got an entirely new receiver room. Okay, this is Jonathan Smith's receiver room at this point. You can't say it's Mel Tucker. You can't even say it's D'Antonio. Okay, if anybody was saying that, but it's your receiver room now. And Nick Marsh, I think he's one of the most slept-on wide receivers in college football right now. I don't hear anybody talking about Nick Marsh. Nobody. And it makes sense because last year Michigan State was not very good. So, if Nick Marsh can be that top wide receiver in the Big Ten, and Aiden Childs can live up to that 4-star recruit, we're talking about an actually pretty compelling offense. And even a guy like Jack Belling, who last year had just one touchdown, if he can, he's another one who came over with Jonathan Smith. If these guys can just work it together, if you can just say, okay, last year it was a learning year, you had a young quarterback, you had no offensive line. I mean, you go back and watch some of those games. And you can look at my live reactions. It was like Childs had half a second and then he's dead. or he'll fumble or whatever. I give credit to Jonathan Smith for this. He identified points of weakness, especially on the offense, and he attacked that. He said, okay, our offensive line's not good enough. Let's get 3 new offensive linemen as our starters, and even a 4th in depth. Our wide receiver room is not reliable, and we're losing guys. Okay, let's bring in a bunch of wide receivers. You know, our running back room no longer exists. Bring in a running back and further develop some of the other guys we already had. Even on the defensive side, I'll give them some credit. I mean, there was a few, defensive line add-ons that hopefully can do well. I'm not saying that Michigan State is, some powerhouse team. But look, my hope, my hope of hopes, like the pinnacle of what I think could be, would be that 9-3 season. Would be you beat Michigan and you look like basically one of the top up and coming teams in the Big Ten, right? You have a season not exactly like Indiana, obviously. If they had a season like Indiana, that'd be crazy. But maybe a little bit less than what Indiana had last year, where let's say you go on the road, you beat USC, and you beat Michigan at home, and you beat Iowa on the road, but you lose to Penn State, you lose to Indiana on the road, and I don't know, maybe you lose to Dylan Raiola, assuming Nebraska maybe takes that leap. That's me being optimistic. Okay. Me being realistic is, I don't know, maybe 7-5. And that sounds like I'm being mean, but it's just, this team has hurt me many, many times. And as much as I would love to be able to finally get back to beating Michigan, look, Aiden Childs, it's a lot to ask. And as much as the offense is different this year, we don't know if Jonathan Smith is the guy. We have a new athletic director who did not hire Jonathan Smith. Now, maybe he's going to empower Jonathan Smith. Maybe he's he believes in the vision. That's why he came here to take that job. I think Michigan State is going to have an interesting year. And this does feel like the impasse season for Michigan State. If you go out there and you go 5-7, you might as well shut the program down. If you go out there and you go 6-6, you might as well tell the rest of the college football world, come and take our players. Nick Marsh, you would look real good in a Buckeye jersey, basically, is what you could be telling people. Because at that point, just tell me you're not serious. I want to be able to say that I believe Michigan State is going to go 8-4. My heart is telling me they're probably going to end up going 7-5. If they win a bowl game and go 8-5 at the end of it, I guess I could say, all right, this was at least more fun than I've had recently. But look, if you can get to 8-4, I'll say, okay, that's a success. And then further, 9-3, that's outstanding. That's Jonathan Smith has arrived. East Lansing is going to be popping the following season. Whether that happens is a real question mark. Hey, YouTube, if you like clips like that, hit the like, hit the subscribe button. We've got live shows every Tuesday night. Hope to see you there.